Welcome to the Pet Loss Journals podcast. I am your host Louise. This podcast is all about the reality and impact pet loss has on our lives, and I will be discussing my personal journey through pet loss. So if you are struggling on your own pet loss journey, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome to episode 2 of the Pet Loss Journals. I am your host Louise. If you joined me on episode 1, I gave a very detailed description of why I decided to start this podcast and a little bit about my journey through pet loss. Just to remind listeners that this podcast is about journal entries that I wrote down in my journals around the time and in the couple of years following the death of both of my dogs. So today I will be talking a little bit more about another journal entry. We will get into that straight away. So today's journal entry is from the 26th of October 2019, so still a couple of days after both of my dogs died. It's been a bit lonely today. I've been on my own all day, but I tried to keep as busy as I could. I cleaned the whole car because all the dog hair was upsetting me. It's so hard getting used to my own company. That was my journal entry from the 26th of October. And it really brings me back and highlights that it was just deeply, deeply upsetting. Such a simple thing like my dog's hair in the car. I mean, I'm sure that many of you can relate to this, and I don't know whether it was just me seeing that all the time that was upsetting me. It's not that I wanted to get rid of every trace of my dogs. I guess I just wanted to ease the pain in those days, in those moments, and that by doing that, I felt that eased the pain. But there was a slight element of guilt that am I just trying to erase everything about my dogs, like the hair in the car and so on. And everybody's grief journey is different. And some people wouldn't be able to get to that stage of hoovering hair from their car, and that's perfectly okay because everybody is on a different journey. And what helps others may not help somebody else through the pain that they're going through. Also, kind of looking at this journal entry, it's clear that I've also said that I tried to keep as busy as I could. And this is something that since I have learned so much about. This is a huge myth when it comes to grief. In inverted commas, keeping busy. Keeping busy is such a huge myth. And what I mean by that is we are kind of conditioned and we've learned from generations and from society that if we keep busy enough, time then will help us to heal. But actually, keeping busy is merely a distraction. So I was on the go keeping busy. As I mentioned in episode 1, I relentlessly did not want to spend time on my own in the house. So I was walking 10-15 kilometres every evening after work. This was also how I was keeping busy. I was distracting myself. I was suppressing my feelings. I was not sitting with my emotions. I was avoiding it. So I was avoiding, I was suppressing, and I was distracting. And doing all those things is ultimately keeping busy. And keeping busy has a positive kind of label on it. When it comes to, family may say, oh, keep busy and you'll feel better soon, or keeping busy is the way to heal from grief. And I don't know, there are so many terms, and there are so many statements that I have heard myself during that time. And it's no fault of others. This is what they've learned. This is what we've learned. We've just carried on that conditioning, and we can't blame others for that. But when we educate ourselves around grief, that's when we can learn about what may have been unhelpful at the time of grieving. And if you, the listener, are currently going through a recent major loss event and you have heard those statements, keep busy and, keep yourself out and about and doing something all the time, you may feel that pressure to do that, and maybe that deep down your gut is telling you to sit with the feelings and to release that emotional energy that's built up, like that I keep saying, the emotional roller coaster, and try not to resist that. It's hard not to absorb and listen to others when we're going through a really difficult, grieving experience with any animal companion that's in our life. It doesn't matter what kind of animal it is. And what I tend to do is I will say, I won't argue with the person if that's their statements. I will not absorb that. I will just let that fly over my head as such. And I will concentrate on my own healing journey. Listening to others' advice and what you should do at a really difficult time when grieving is really, really difficult. I know that we're all vulnerable and we're all in pain. And what I'm trying to say is, keeping as busy as I could wasn't helping me in any way, shape or form. I was under the illusion that it was. But in hindsight, I have learned that it only delayed my healing from that major, major loss events that I went through. And while I thought that it was helping, it was prolonging that unresolved grief that was just sitting in the cells in my body. Opening up to all of you about my journal entries during the time of the death of my dogs is something that's really vulnerable, but I would encourage each of you to purchase a journal, or if you have one, start to write down just anything. Just start writing. There doesn't have to be a structure. There doesn't have to be prompts, any of this stuff. At least write it down in black and white. Get those emotions out. If you find it difficult to physically get the emotions out, at least write them down. And as the weeks and months go on, and when you read back on those journal entries, you will start to see a journey forming, like a healing journey. And I often look back from the very beginning in October 2019 to now, to my journal entries now, and the absolute healing that I did. I worked so hard to form a new life, because you can't go back to your old life with your companion animals. You can't try to replicate that old life, but I formed a brand new life. So much change, so much amazing things happened. And that can be the same for you as the listener. So those 3 things in that journal entry, keeping busy, cleaning the dog hair from my car because it was so upsetting, and also getting used to my own company. I was completely and utterly on my own in my house, living on my own, and I hadn't lived on my own ever before. So this was so daunting, so overwhelming. And it was so quiet. The silence was just deafening. And some of you may have family with you and partners and housemates and so on. But even if you are living with people, it can be equally as lonely. And you can feel as equally as alone, because you feel that no one understands what you're going through. And I hope that if you have found this podcast, then that is no coincidence. It really is not. This has come your way for a particular reason, whether it is to help you to start your healing journey, to help you while you're on your healing journey, to educate you about grief and the myths and the misinformation and the facts and everything. So I will be, discussing lots of that information over the coming episodes. And I hope that you will all be able to learn something and learn some tips on how to help you to heal and help you to experience joy again, because I did not experience joy for so many months. I did not know how to again. So I hope that this episode has been helpful for you today. I will see you on episode 3, where I will be discussing another journal entry with you all. I would love to hear your feedback. You can follow me on _light_after_loss. That is _light_after_loss on Instagram. Pop me a message, let me know if you have listened to the podcast. Any feedback is greatly appreciated. If you would like me to cover any particular topic on the podcast, I would love to know as well. I have all the details in the show notes on how to contact me, email, etc. I would love if you subscribed or followed, so you will know when the next episode is released. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this week's episode. Remember, your pet loss grief is real, and it is so valid. Please be gentle on yourself. Until next time, take care.